Ladies and gentlemen, you've been a wonderful audience. You've been attentive, you've been engaged, you've been clearly listening very well indeed. I can feel the energy in the room. So thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for your participation, for your presence, for your support for us and for the cause more broadly. I'd like to thank all those online also who weren't able to come or are stuck at home, but who are following our meeting online and those who will follow it again later. I also want to thank those, and there were several of them who I need to name and others who it would be invidious for me to do so, who made this conference possible. And that includes starting with Dr. Phyllis Starkey, excuse me, Phyllis, muddling your first name, who was the chair of our subcommittee and who really drove the planning for this event. She and her colleagues really made it possible to do so. I want to thank our speakers who came from abroad and made a special effort to be able to come here. Your presence is very important. I'd like to thank those also, like Melanie and our parliamentarians, for taking the trouble to come in person. It's so easy these days to do Zoom events, but the physical encounter with each other matters a great deal. So for all of you, a great deal of thanks. I also want to remind people of something that may be a statement to the obvious, but I need to say it, is that we're a charity dependent on volunteers. We have no full-time staff, and we really depend on donations. So your support for us in whatever way you feel is possible is greatly appreciated. I was asked to try to sum up and address some of the main points that came out from the discussions, particularly with a view to preparing the action plan that we intend to present to the British government and to other relevant bodies, including different political parties, on issues that we heard today. And there are many themes that kept on recurring here during the meeting. We've prepared some points ourselves. They coincide to a large degree with many of the things that were said here. So I'm happy to see that there was a meeting of minds. And at the end of the day, we will condense these issues into the most important action-orientated issues, some of them relatively small steps, some technical issues, some important issues such as the reference to settlement trade that we've heard now, or the issues about finance, the role of the UK as a finance hub, helping to finance the occupation, upholding of international law, clearly, Britain living up to its obligations, its treaty obligations, as well as its role as a permanent member of the Security Council. But politically, we're also looking ahead to the next government. We don't know which one that'll be. Opinion polls suggest that it might be Labour, possibly with others, we don't know. But at least to think that the next government, and it was important to hear the Shadow Minister for the Middle East just now speak on these issues of what Labour Party's position is on important matters. We hope that they will consider very seriously recognition of Palestine immediately and take action on that subject as one of their top priorities. But certainly ensuring consistency over international law and the references to the International Criminal Court, to the International Court of Justice are central there. You know, these are issues that we can't afford not to be consistent about. We've heard some signs of hope. I think the fact that there is a new conservative Friends of Palestine, which has been gathering support, is really quite encouraging, and that there is cross-party support for many of the issues that we're talking about. The issues of making trade with settlements illegal was mentioned by Saeed Awasi, but also by others during the course of this discussion. I think one thing that kept on coming back was the need for a change in our narrative, our analysis of the situation. The diagnosis of the situation must be, as Francesca was saying, more accurate, a proper analysis of Israel's strategy and what its goals are, and not engaging in make-believe that we think that we know what the situation is, or we pretend it's somehow different from what it is. So calling a spade, being honest with ourselves about the narrative, not treating Israel with kid gloves as if it is not engaging in some of these actions. We heard questions about whether the Church of England could be doing more. Possibly, yes, but they have already been good supporters, but it's certainly an area that we should need to do more on. And we will be encouraging more visits out to the region, not only by religious leaders, but also by political candidates to try to get them to see the realities before they become new members of the House. The issue of the lack of protection for Palestinians is clearly a recurrent theme, and we have to find ways to be able to address this better. It is one that is glaringly obvious that something needs to be done about it, and it's no good just going on citing the statistics or pointing to the failed initiatives. There is an obligation to protect people in occupied territories and to be able to address the needs that they have. Certainly, the Palestinian Authority needs to reform itself, and we heard references to the need for improving of the democratic legitimacy of the Palestinian Authority. The way towards that is elections. And I would encourage the British government and all of us as British citizens here to be able to encourage our MPs and members of the government to be able to support the holding of free and fair elections and pledge in advance to respect the results. This is the critical thing. Pledge in advance that no matter how it falls out, respect the results of the elections, just as you would do anywhere else. Palestinians should not be held to different standards. There will be a conference report. You will all get copies of it. And all that it leaves me to do now is to be able to say that there will be a reception afterwards for our distinguished speakers and for some of our patrons and our donors. Those of you who are invited to it know who you are. So please go to the room downstairs where we first had the drinks and where you registered. And I look forward to seeing all of you again in the near future. Thank you very much.